Good morning. This is Rich Larson, and I want to apologize for the slightly late start. I had a little glitch here on my end, so welcome everybody. And I trust you can hear me okay. And as a way to communicate, please look at the GoToWebinar question panel and send me in any questions you have. And to get started, perhaps you could also send me in your name and your location and anything else that's happening in your part of the world, like the weather, just to kind of get used to the keyboard and the little window or whatever. So we'll get started. I'm going to open up the PowerPoint, just a very simple deck. So give me a second to get that going, and we'll get started. So welcome everybody. Hi, Cindy. 5 inches of snow in Illinois. Holy moly, it's a little bit early for that. That's going to be a strange winter this year, I think. In Minnesota, we escaped any snow, although I have relatives in Madison that got a ton of snow, so that's probably similar to you. So, hi, Ankur in Edmonton, Windy in Edmonton. Okay, chat, here we go. Let me get the slides here. So again, locate the GoToWebinar question panel. That's how we're going to have you guys submit questions to me, and I'll read them back to you to answer your questions. And you can send them in anytime. Here we go. Here's a little slide deck that you should have a copy of in the handout section. We always send them out afterwards as well. So my name is Rich Larson, and I'm welcoming you to the November edition of our IIBA chat. And any questions about our IIBA certification are fair game. One thing that is in the, let's see, where is it? Hopefully. One of the slides in the deck I'm going to point out right off the bat, and that is that IIBA is changing its exam system starting in January 2020, and they're going to switch to all remote computer-based proctored exam system as opposed to the in-session testing center kind of format they've been using. They've experimented a little with some of the newer exams on this, like the AAC exam, for instance, but now all of the exams are going to be there, and there's going to be a certain blackout. I don't know when you are looking for this. And by the way, a couple of people have asked, where can you find the deck? Did you look in the handout section? Tell me if you looked there or not. Handouts. I'm going to drag and drop a file. Hold on a second. We may have missed that this session here. Let me just drag that over. Let me see here. Okay. I just checked it now. If you could please double check to look at the handout section. Do you see that in your GoToWebinar menu, everybody? Cindy found it. Yeah. Ankur, did you see that? Or Karthik, I'm sorry, Karthik, did you find that slide deck right now where I indicated? Great. Okay. Thanks for pointing that out, folks. Just anything else like that, any of the glitches that could be audio every once in a while might have a glitch, please send that in to me. But anyway, there's a blackout period. So if you're thinking of taking an exam around the first of the year, bear in mind that from January 1st through the 15th, they are going to change over the exam system. So you will not be able to take a CBAP or CCBA exam during that time frame. And to give you kind of an incentive to get it done early, they're giving you a 20% discount if you write your exam by the end of this year. So that's a nice incentive, especially if you're self-financing, or even if your company is, save them 20% and get your exam done by the end of the year. They're also going to extend your application that might expire in January to go through part of February. just because of that 15-day blackout period, you won't be able to take your exam. So they're extending your 1-year window that you have for your exam. That may not apply to you. So, excuse me, that may not make a difference. But if you are thinking of taking your exam the first of the year, there are some things to bear in mind. And so fire away with any questions about that as you have. So we'll start with Ankur. And he says, I have taken the Watermark prep course and have booked my exam in the end of November. That's good, but I'm feeling low for this date. When you say low, do you mean you're feeling uncertain of your preparedness for the exam? The prep course is a good start. Uncertain of passing it, he says. Yeah, I've been through the Babic twice, but it's still in my simulations. You're getting what 60 to 70%. One of the approaches, let me back the slide deck up here to show, let's see, where is it? Hold on a second. All right. What we recommend is to read the Babic at least once and perhaps twice. I don't know if English is your primary language, Ankur, perhaps not. And if it's not, that sometimes gives people somewhat of a challenge, but even if it is your primary language, the Babic is not exactly an easy, approachable thing. So go through one chapter at a time, and our study guide, if you took our course, the study guide is also available for you, and that might make it more understandable. And then what you want to do is do a drill or two after you read a chapter, particularly focusing on the chapters of the Babic that are giving you the most trouble. So if your exam scores are still less than 80%, perhaps step 4 here shows in the tips to go back and read those sections that are still giving you trouble. We designed the online study exam to give you feedback on correct and incorrect questions, to go look at and read the Babic sections that you're having trouble with, or that may be surprising. Why did they answer it that way? That doesn't make sense. So you're confirming, yeah, English is your secondary language, and I do have a study guide, you say. So that has been an approach that we've recommended for years, and going through all of the Babic sections and then go back to your simulations. So if you're getting that 60 to 70%, go through maybe one time through all of the chapters of the Babic, doing those drills as I'm recommending, and then return to the simulations and following the rest of the tips. Okay. Let's see, good. You're welcome, Ankur. Cindy asks, I did a first read of the Babic, and she says, I've not taken the ECBA course. I did find a sample test online and I got a score of like 55% or so. Any suggestions on improving my score? Well, one suggestion is to help you absorb the Babic is answering more questions. Now, if you found a sample test online, that's one time through. We designed our online study exam to help people get in the swing of answering test questions, because the only real way to verify that you know the information is to test you on it. And I know these multiple choice questions are artificial. They're not really indicative of necessarily how you will perform as a BA, but they're the best that institutions like IIBA have for measuring your knowledge. So our online study exam is the suggestion about that for improving your score. And if you're still struggling, then of course we suggest our course. So we have a live course as well as a recorded anytime learning on demand kind of course that you could take. But if you're still approaching ECBA, perhaps try the online study exam first, Cindy. She also says, where could I find the sample test that you were talking about? Well, You mentioned the sample test. I was not aware of any. Not that I'm sure they're out there, but people produce, sample questions, and if it's given away for free, bear in mind the value of something that you get for free. It could be good, but our exam has helped hundreds of ECBA candidates and thousands of CBAP and CCBA candidates. So Cindy, you're saying you're planning to take the course, but your schedule is crazy. Well, one more thought is perhaps then the Anytime Learning version would be the best for you. That way you can divide it up into chunks as your schedule allows. You could study, one section of the Babic at a time and spread it out over days or even weeks to help it fit into your schedule. And I also think that's pretty good as far as absorbing the information. So Cindy also says that the exam you took was not from Watermark. Yep, that's true. We don't have a free one, so we don't have another one. Okay, next question, Karthik. Would the IIBA allow an extension of the 1-year period from the application date? Well, when they approve your application, you have 1 year from that date of approval to sit for your exam. So the extension I mentioned earlier was if you were approved last January 2019, and it expires January 2020, they will extend that because they realize that they're disturbing your chance of being able to take the exam with their 15-day blackout period. So that's the only extension I know of, Karthik, and I don't think they would extend it. Now, if you had some reason, like you've landed in a hospital for 3 months or something, they would probably listen to your situation and maybe extend your deadline accordingly. But that's a rarity, and it's on a case-by-case basis. They don't have an official policy for that, for sure. But hopefully I answered your question with that as far as the extension goes. Ankur saying, is there a way I can see all of the knowledge questions for a knowledge area in a simulation? Not really. We constructed our online study exam to give you, for example, in the drills, a reasonable number of practice questions per drill, rather than, we might have 150 in our exam bank for a given knowledge area, but that would be pretty daunting. It would be like aiming a fire hose at you with that many questions. So we purposely chunk it into small bits. If you do drill after drill after drill, you're going to see all the questions. So to answer your question, there is no way. And if you do enough simulations, you'll definitely get all of the questions, because, after, with 1,000 and some questions, if you do, the 100 and some questions at a time, you're going to see them all. So, and by the way, some people have taken thousands and thousands of practice questions when they prepare. Although, truth be told, sometimes those might be a group of people sharing one subscription, but I do think individuals might literally go through thousands of questions in their preparation. So you'll end up seeing all of them. It's not an infinite bank of questions. It's hard to write good exam questions. And at Watermark Learning, we pride ourselves on the quality of our materials. And so we don't just generate simple questions that are not realistic enough to ever be on the exam. And on that note, the questions in all of our exam banks are not duplicates of what would be on IIBA's exam. First of all, we don't know what's on that exam. Second of all, they would be violating our code of conduct. It would not be ethical to do that. And thirdly, our process for developing questions is to use the information in the Babic, our knowledge of how questions are prepared, because the team at Watermark has a lot of certifications spread over not just IIBA, and we know how to construct good questions. So Ankur does a follow-up, a next question. Do you think the new exam provider would be better compared to Prometric? I can't really say. I would, I think, rather go into a test center myself. That's just me. One of my colleagues, Andrea Brockmeyer at Watermark Learning, took her AAC exam in a remote proctored setting. And she said it was kind of a weird experience because she had to clear her desk at home. She took it at home and show with a camera that there's nothing there with study materials nearby, whatever. And then she also, once in a while, was told by the proctor to keep her hands close to the keyboard because, I don't know, she was maybe gesturing with her hands. I guess she was helping her think or something. I don't know what she was doing, but it's kind of an artificial situation. So to that extent, you know, it's nice to be able to do it remotely from home, but it would not be like an open book. So the second part of your question, Ankur, you would be monitored, but would it be like an open book, you ask? No, no. You're really monitored quite carefully by the proctor. As I said, you're going to be asked with a camera to show the area is free from any books. There's no Babic open in front of you. They want to make sure of that. And you don't have any notes in front of you and any cheat sheets or whatever. And like I said, throughout the exam, the proctor's watching to make sure that you don't kind of reach over and grab something, or that there's someone else in the room that's looking over your shoulder or whatever to help you out with questions. So it's a pretty tightly controlled environment. Cindy asked, when you talk about the exam bank, is that something you get when you've taken the course? Yes, it is. You get 90 days use of our online study exam for your use as you're preparing to take your real exam. So that comes with any of the courses, and it also comes with the online study exam, so that you get infinite use of all of the questions, and we certainly love for you to exhaust all of them. Like I said, people use thousands of practice questions as they prepare, so that is definitely something we like to encourage. Jayesh says, do simulators mimic the exact scenario in most of the question types, just like the real exam? We try to mimic the tone and the type of questions as best we can, the kind of language they might use. I've heard some complaints that the grammar used in the exams is not the best, the real ones, but anyway, we use the best grammar we can. But we also have a mixture. Let's say, Jayesh, what exam are you sitting for? What are you preparing for? Which of the exams? I should actually open up a poll too. I'm gonna CBAP or CCBA, great. I'm going to launch a poll here as we ponder this for the rest of you, just to get a sense of feedback, because that depends on the kind of exam you're taking, what my answer is going to be here. So as you guys are looking at the poll, the CBAP in particular has the most variety. It has some, actually the smallest percentage of questions are knowledge or recall kind of questions, meaning what's the definition of business analysis, and then you have A, B, C, D. There are maybe 30 to 40 questions on project, this is happening, like the stakeholders are not forthcoming with their requirements. What should Jayesh do? And then A, B, C, D. What are the actions what's the technique you should use or whatever. And thirdly, again, 30 to 40% of the questions are on case studies. And I'm going to close the poll now because I think most of you have looked at that. So let's see, I'm going to show my screen. You know, nobody mentioned that you can't see my screen. I am remiss at not showing it before. So I apologize for that, but here you go. Most of you in the webinar are CBAP today and ECBA second. So I'm going to close that poll. Let's go back here and hide it. Okay. Re-show my screen. Here we go. The CBAP prep tips I was talking about here as far as reading the Babic once, study a chapter, do your drill questions, and so on. So anyway, back to Jayesh's question. The third kind of question on the CBAP exam are called case studies. These are going to be multiple paragraphs. IIBA says they range from a page to a page and a half of written text or graphics. There may be some diagrams included. And then you have 3 to 4, maybe 5 questions on those case studies. And we have a batch of them in our exam bank to let you practice on. So you got to read through this longest case study and then answer the questions in a more realistic, lifelike setting. So it's a real good, honest attempt at testing your on-the-job kind of performance as opposed to just your knowledge. The ECBA at the other end of the spectrum, because it's based on people either with little or no BA experience, will have exclusively knowledge-based questions. Maybe a situation sprinkled in here or there, I don't really know, but we're told that it's knowledge-based. And the CCBA is in the middle. It'll have knowledge-based and situational questions, no case studies. CBAP is the only one with those case study questions. In our simulator mirrors that. I don't know about other people's simulators, but ours definitely does. Okay, CBAP. Cindy, okay, you lost the audio, but you got it back. Okay, thanks for letting me know, guys. And is it back for everyone right now? Great, I'm glad. Ankur, good. Hopefully you kind of went through that. Do you want me to repeat the, in a brief form, the 3 kinds of questions that are on the CBAP? Anyone missed that? In case the audio was not good, just let me know. Just let me know that. I'm going to go down here to the upcoming IIBA changes. You weren't able to see that screen. Again, I apologize. Here you go. So in the slide deck, you can refer to this about the details regarding those upcoming exams. I'm going to launch another poll as long as we are view the polls. Where'd it go? I know the polls are around. Where are you? There we go. Okay. I'm going to launch another poll asking how far along are you in your certification process? And kind of a rough idea. So are you just looking into it? Get your application done, your exam is soon, anywhere along those 5 points, where are you at? Okay, good, people are coming in now with your responses. About half of you have voted so far. And if you have other questions, please shoot them in, because I have only one question in the queue waiting. Okay, 58% of you, a couple more. Collecting the responses here. I'm going to share the results. Most of you are in the process of applying. Anybody have any application-oriented questions? Whoops. Audience view. If you have any application-oriented questions, let me know. Hide the poll. There we go. And Jayesh is asking, if I start from this month, like from this week only, would it be enough to write the exam in the last week of December? It depends. If you're studying for the CBAP exam, our research has found that about 100 hours of study is what is most common. That's the average number of hours of study, and it's also the median number of hours. So it's pretty consistent between two batches of research we have done. And you could do it. You could get it done by the end of December if you have that many hours available in your work or home life to be able to devote to studying. I don't know how many weeks. Let's say 6 weeks. 100 divided by 6 is roughly what? I can't do the math in my head. Let's say 15 hours a week or something. I'm just making that up. It's probably pretty close to that, but so if you have 15, it would take you 15 hours a week for that. Some people have then taken time off of work. Maybe you don't have that much vacation available, but they've taken a week to study, and that increases your likelihood of being able to get enough studying. Yeah, but I just want to encourage you, don't take it lightly. If you're just starting now, expect about 100 hours of study time for the CBAP. CCBA might be slightly less, but not by much. ECBA, again, less than that because of the scope of the exam. But again, I would use that and factor that in and treat this like a project and plan out a schedule. Do I really have that much time available? Ankur asks, I know most of your materials states 100 hours is good, right? Like I said, but I've put more than that, okay? It's not. Some people have told me they've spent 400 hours. I don't mean to say you should do that, Ankur, but the fact is 100 hours is only an average number. And that's only people's recollection. Maybe they actually put in more, but if you still need more time, you're not alone. It is not something that necessarily is possible for people to do the same. Some people like me are good test takers. I'm not bragging, but I am. And it doesn't reflect my knowledge is better than anyone else if I could take tests, but that's a skill. And you may not have that skill, and you may have the same knowledge as the next person, but tests are hard. So I do think the online exams are your best friend that way in terms of understanding how to take an exam. Another way is in the courses. I can't remember if it was you or Jayesh who said you took a class, Ankur, but the course should also help you understand taking questions. Good, you took it. So maybe go back and look at some of the videos that you get with the course as a way to refresh yourself. You're also saying that your exam date is coming up November 25th. That's kind of soon, and you've booked the last week off from work. I think that's good too, to do last minute studying. So I think that gives you a nice cushion to follow the advice here. Again, I want to point you to the tips that are in your slide deck as far as going through a chapter at a time and doing those practices. And then always end up taking simulations at the end, because that's what you're going to be asked to do when you take the real exam. You have a limited amount of time to go through those 100 and some questions. And simulations are the best way to judge how long it takes you to answer questions. So we suggest you always take at least one timed test as you're practicing to see your speed at answering questions. I think it's important to know how long are you taking to answer each question to know whether you need to maybe spend some more time studying. Because I think maybe, what did I figure? 2 minutes per question when you get into the real exam, and that's not a lot of time. I think when you think about it, And I don't mean to make you nervous for that, but what I do mean to suggest is that you understand how quickly you are answering questions. Uh, so, which reminds me of probably my favorite test taking tactic, and that is when you get into your exam, you have a difficult question, skip it. Don't even answer, go to the next question. And if it's difficult, skip that one and keep skipping until you get a question that you find, hey, I know this stuff, I can answer this one. That is perhaps the best way to relieve your test anxiety that I know of. That, and at the start of the exam, say to yourself, I'm going to pass this exam. And if you have a whiteboard, if you're taking your exam November 25th or before the exam changes, you can write on a whiteboard, I will pass this exam, something positive like that. But skipping questions and then going back, the system keeps track of which questions you've not answered. So you go back and look at the questions, and almost invariably, they will be easier the second time through. I can't explain why. Maybe you've kind of gotten in the mode, or maybe you've learned something throughout the exam. Maybe it triggers something in your brain. Maybe you just are more confident, but you'll be more sure of yourself the second time, or even the third time through. So the second time through, if you again run into a difficult question, keep skipping until you get a question you can answer. And then probably the third time through, you better start answering it, because the one thing you do not want to do is leave any question blank. I've often gotten asked, do I get marked for not answering a question? You certainly do get marked off, because you will never get it right. You are better off guessing than leaving a question blank. And usually you can get things down to one of two possible answers. Two of them are usually easier to know that they're wrong, and so that you get down to the last two correct answers. We're almost out of time here. We've been going about a half an hour, which is what it's scheduled for. I'm willing to keep going here with more questions. If you have to dash, remember that we will send you your own copy of the recording. It'll be a link that you'll get, and so look for that. So Ankur is saying, I always complete my 25 questions within 20 minutes. There you go. Okay, so if you answer 25 questions and it takes you less than 20 minutes, you are answering less than 1 minute per question, which is good. That's half the amount of time you need to be doing that, so excellent. Cindy is saying, if you fail the test the first time, is there a fee for retaking? Yes, there is. Let me see, I've got that in this slide deck. We have a lot of different decks available. I don't know if this one is listing that, not here. I know some of our materials on our website shows, this doesn't have it here, but this certification resources is chock full of links for you to go find information about the exams. One of the best things you can do for yourself, if you haven't already, is, let me get this here, spotlight, is to look for the handbooks. Go to the different things, and IIBA isn't emphasizing levels as much as they used to, but level 3, 2, and 1, CBAP, CCBA, and ECBA, plus there are other resources here. Definitely go and get the handbook for your exam if you have not already. It clearly lays out in there what the retake fee is for your exam. So yes, but the thing is, you don't have to reapply. You can take the exam, I think it's up to 3 more times within the year, but again, you do have to pay for the fee. So while it's not pleasant to do that, I'd still rather retake it and pay the fee and pass than give up and not pass. I think if you take the exam fairly quickly, and there used to be a limit on how long you had to wait. They've since done away with that. I would try to schedule it as soon as you can, within a month or less of your first date if you fail. And while the questions are fresh in your mind, you know what you have to study. So it's hopefully in your brain. I'd even get into study right away. they obviously don't tell you which questions you got wrong, but you know which questions that you struggle with, and so you know what areas you want to go back and study. So it's not terrible if you fail and have to take it again. It's not pleasant, mind you. I wouldn't want to pay, and I agree it would be not a fun thing, but it's not as bad as it might seem. Cindy's also saying, is there a resource to help you review the answers that you missed? I'm not quite sure I understand the question. Our online study exam definitely gives you the questions you missed, and you can go and look at those, and then look at the Babic reference numbers and go study in the Babic or our study guide about the questions you missed. When you take the real exam, you don't get that, but we pride ourselves on that ability with our study exam to help you figure out which questions you got right and wrong. The subscription cost for CBAP simulators, for CBAP range from, I think it's $95 to 100 or 99 to 159, depending on it's 30, 60, or 90 days. And CCBA is a little less, and ECBA is even a little less than that. So we designed those to hopefully make them affordable for people if you can't afford the full class or don't have the time. Ankur says, I would take full exam and simulation tomorrow just to see where I'm at. Sure, go ahead. I mean, if you have access to the exam, just take it and see where you're at. So Ankur saying thank you, and I want to thank you, Ankur. Subscription is good. I would recommend it. So thank you for that recommendation, Ankur. We do appreciate that, and tell your colleagues about it as well, because again, it's helped a lot of people. We know the quality that goes into that, and I think the usefulness of the Babic numbers and to get to see what your right and wrong answers are. And as you take the drills, there's an option to let you get the feedback right away. So as you answer a question, you can get the feedback immediately with each question. With the simulation, we try to duplicate the test environment where we don't give you the right or wrong answers until the end of the exam. In other words, so you're kind of wondering, did I get that right or not? Just like the real exam, we want to get you ready for what you're going to experience when you take your real exam. So great. So Ankur, thank you. And any last questions before we round up today? Again, I apologize for the rough start at the beginning, but we got going, and thank you for hanging in there, folks, and for all your questions. Remember, we do these every month. We'll be back again next month. And our training consultants are available to give you advice on training classes and other things if you need it. So check in with them and get yourself into a class or into an anytime learning. That's also another great resource. So I think we'll call it a day today. And again, look for our follow-up email, guys. And as always, best wishes on getting your certification. Thank you very much. Oh, one last question. Jayesh says, will it also involve the guidance class or resource material? The guidance class. I'm not quite sure what you mean, Jayesh. Will it involve the guidance class or resource material? The class, do you mean? If you take a class or are anytime learning, is that what your question is? The CBAP training, yes. Well, if you take the live class, you'll have the live interactive discussions with a CBAP instructor who's gifted and versatile at an experience at providing guidance to people. You'll get a copy of our study guide, all of the lecture notes from classes, the 90-day subscription to the online study exam, both for the live version, but also for the anytime learning. The anytime learning takes those live discussions in a recorded version, lets you listen to them, and then you get the other resources as well. So it's a good value, and the cost is less than the live version. And people have preferences for both, so that's why we provide both options. So thank you very much. Okay, well, I'm going to end the recording now, and I want to again thank you and wish you all the best, and look for you next month, perhaps, if you want to attend next month's edition. Thank you now.